Yes. Yeah.
But like the comparison, like with me and some of the other guys.
So that'd be something neat to see, the Harris Centers at
The Pirates playing in Williams.
All right, welcome back to the third period. Yeah, this one's definitely it's the title is going to make this interesting, and we probably will get a lot of comments from either on social media or just privately messaged to us. Players of controversy. Some people may think these people aren't controversy. Some people will say, yes, they are. This is going to be great. So, and I know, I mean, I just have 4 listed for now, but I know the list that they actually have there is going to be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I'm kind of scrolling through this list, and there's some that are on here that I don't think are all that controversial.
Well, again, like I just said, some may think they are, some may think they're not.
The reason I think some of these people aren't controversial, I don't know. It's a stupid position to take. Never mind.
No, go ahead. This is what it is.
No, I think some of the people on here who are listed as controversial, like example, O.J. Simpson. He's controversial. He murdered someone. Well, murdered,
yeah,
quotation
exactly.
marks. If he did it, idiot.
That's how you really feel.
But now, other side of that spectrum, there's athletes on here who, because of their identity, people suddenly dislike them, even though as an athlete, they really weren't controversial and they haven't been an athlete in 40 years. Comparatively, I don't think that person is anywhere near as controversial as an O.J. Simpson or an Aaron Hernandez. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if we're going to include their outside life, it's got to be on the O.J. Simpson, Aaron Hernandez level, and not on the other end of that discussion. Without trying to be controversial,
well, I think you're always going to be controversial in anything with this, just because one may think it doesn't matter who you are. But you're either in this, you're a sport that athlete, you're always in the spotlight, no matter how you look at it. So controversy on the field or brink or whatever, it's going to roll over into into your personal life. Because, you have those people who they see out in the out and about, they cannot stop and, they just got to keep going with, hey, you did this, and this.
Okay, so for me, comparatively speaking, not going with OJ or anyone else, let's focus on Barry Bonds and Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman on the court, total professional, greatest rebounder of all time, one of the greatest Bulls of all time, one of the greatest Detroit Pistons of all time, in the NBA Hall of Fame. Led a rock star lifestyle. Let's just call it that. He led a rock star lifestyle, and that's why he's considered controversial. And then there's Barry Bonds, who off the field is a very private individual. You don't hear much about his private life at all.
No.
A bit of a jerk to the press, but his on-field existence is very controversial.
Sorry.
So, in that case, I would say Bonds is far more controversial than Rodman. If we're looking at things strictly in sport, right? Because pre-steroids Barry Bonds, I would say, was one of the greatest all-around players in baseball. He was a threat on the bases. He was a threat on at home plate. He was a threat defensively. He was a great baseball player. Should have been a Hall of Famer. As soon as the press cared way more about Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa's home run chase, Barry Bonds was quoted as saying, if that's all they want, that's what they're going to get. Because he actually had one of the best seasons of his career in 1998.
Well, the thing is, though, with the media, they always, sorry to cut you off, they always try to. This is why I also hate politics too. Because of this, they'll just throw things together and hope for the best. Like they'll say, like, we want this. Okay, fine, you'll get that, but the way you're going to get it is the way you're not going to like it.
98's an interesting year for Major League Baseball because baseball's still reeling from the strike. It's 4 years later. Ratings haven't been good, and the chase to beat Roger Maris's single season record was a draw. It brought people to watch the games both in person and on TV. So it makes sense to rally around Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa at that time, taking away everything we know now and just looking at it strictly like
as a chase,
as a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, which is what we were then.
Mm-hmm.
It was something we were hyped about as sports fans because it was exciting. It was new. It was something that hadn't happened in our lifetimes.
Yeah, and you have, like you just said, to those guys, and like every time it's on, you have to watch to see how many did he hit this? How many did he hit this game?
Who's leading the chase? Who's
right. Exactly? It's just like right now with Ovechkin trying to get Gretzky's record. This is the same way with baseball, is where like we just said, how many is he getting? How many is McGwire to Sosa? How far apart are they? Who's ahead? Who, it's just the list keeps going. But then when it's all said and done, smoke clears. Then now the drama comes out.
Right. And comparatively, going back to Barry Bonds, 98 was actually one of his best seasons as an individual player. And no one cared. And if you watch Ken Burns baseball, it's the 10th inning, because the 10th inning is like the extra one he made like 10 years ago. One of the people on it even says, Bonds said to me, if all they want are home runs, that's all they're gonna get. And that's when he immediately started changing his outlook on professional baseball. It became a business, and it became a way to shove it up the media's butt. And in doing that, he sabotaged his career. He got those home runs, but at what cost?
Yeah. And he's never going to see the Hall of Fame, despite even though his stats prior to any of his performance enhancing era or his game, his seasons, he's not going to see it because of that. Despite he may have had Hall of Fame numbers, he's not going to see it, just like Pete Rose. Just because he bet on baseball, now he's not going to, he's not going to get into the Hall of Fame because of that. Even though he did not bet on baseball, he still was a betting person.
Sorry about those technical difficulties. My app for my camera stopped. I'm more lenient with Pete Rose than I am with a Bonds or a McGwire or a Sosa or an A-Rod.
Well, Pete Rose used for performance enhancing. He played the game hard.
That's not so much what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that Pete Rose is legitimately banned from Major League Baseball. Other than when he's brought out for an all-century team or an all-50-year team or whatever, he's persona non grata in MLB, right? But yet Bonds and McGwire's worked for teams as a hitting coach, These guys
he knows what to take.
These guys aren't banned from baseball. They're never going to get in the Hall of Fame, but they're not banned from baseball. Yet what they did altered the sport's history records, whereas what Pete Rose did just altered his bank account. It was selfish. It was stupid, but he didn't alter the fabric of the game in a controversial way. Whereas these guys, they used performance enhancing drugs, which, depending on which ones they used, were either illegal or legal at the time. Doesn't matter. They used performance enhancing drugs to change the history of the game.
Yeah, I just don't understand that though, where somebody just altered his bank account and, like you just said, and versus altering history, the one who just altered his bank account, just oh, okay.
For as lenient as I am with Pete Rose, at the end of the day, if Pete Rose would just freaking apologize, admit what he did, and say I was wrong, he'd probably be welcomed back with open arms. But he just refuses to. So if he would just swallow the pill and move forward. But he's Pete Rose and he's stubborn and he's full of himself and he's cocky and he still thinks it's 1975 and he can do Petey's,
Well, at the time, I mean, that's what he did. I mean, he was a hard-nosed player.
He was. He absolutely was. But at the same point, he's got to let it go and just, if he wants his legacy to be correctly enshrined, he's got to just own up to it and acknowledge it and say, you know what, I screwed up. I shouldn't have done it. I did it, and I shouldn't have done it. And I'm willing to bet MLB would welcome him back with open arms.
Oh, yeah, because he didn't do anything, like you said, to alter history of the game. He didn't do anything to change any record that he may hold. Or maybe beat at the time and still holds. He didn't change any of that. He didn't do anything to help get those other than work hard.
Right.
But then when you got the racing of, well, like you said, McGwire and Sosa, well, performance-enhancing drugs right there. Yeah,
I'm looking at this list, and some of these people on this list just absolutely baffle me. Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's 50, 51 on this list, something like that.
Like, for every person who I think genuinely belongs on this list, there's like 15 who I'm like, no. Just no.
Jose Canseco, Ray Lewis, Floyd Mayweather Jr.
All right, let's talk about Mayweather. Let's talk about Mayweather. Mayweather's a very
fight with. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
His fight with Conor McGregor. We all knew that McGregor was not going to win because it was just a pure boxing match.
Floyd Mayweather is a very intelligent boxer. However, he's a very boring boxer. For me, as a boxing fan, Floyd Mayweather is very boring to watch. I can only watch someone fantastic defensive boxer, and it's amazing to watch the first 5 times. But they're boring fights. They go the distance. He gets his wins based on his defense and making a few punches around. That's great. I can't stand watching him box.
I can't stand watching boxing. I mean, I can watch.
I love boxing.
I can watch mixed martial arts because there's multiple ways to win other than just start hitting people.
See, I like the strategy of boxing because boxing is human chess at its best. There is strategy. I mean, these guys, they train, they watch film, they train with boxers who fight like the boxers they're gonna go against. It's a very.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's like human chess. It's like watching NASCAR.
Modern boxing's very boring, and we kind of got into that a little bit when we did the Hagler-Hearns third period. You're never going to see fights like that anymore because boxing is such a high dollar sport now that these guys are more concerned with protecting their themselves as an intellectual property than they are in winning the fight decisively.
Yeah.
So I truly believe that a Sugar Ray Leonard in his prime could beat a prime Floyd Mayweather because Sugar Ray wasn't afraid of mixing it up. And he would have gotten those points on Mayweather. Whereas Mayweather's only concerned about getting points and protecting himself, which makes him an intelligent boxer, but a boring boxer to watch. I don't think he might be controversial in that aspect. I don't know enough about him to truly think if he's controversial personally or not.
Yeah, I mean, I know Mayweather, like you just said, one of those. He's a strategy boxer, but I mean, if he wins, then that's what you get. That's what you get the wins, you get the money, you get everything else in between. Then you have a boxer like Mike Tyson, who's controversial all around, whether it's in the ring or out of the ring.
Yeah, but I think Tyson's done a lot of rehab of his personal life and public persona in the last 15, 20 years. I mean, Tyson to me is the epitome of someone who hit rock bottom and found their way out and corrected their mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's why Tyson's like an America's sweetheart. Same like Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg went from Murder Was the Case 25 years ago to hosting a cooking show with Martha Stewart. If that ain't as wholesome as it gets, I don't know what is.
Right.
Here's one. We're not tennis guys by any means, but we know enough about John McEnroe that we can kind of like fudge some talking about him. He's intense. In his prime, he argued calls. But does that really make him in the realm of modern sports, does that really make him controversial?
I say no, because who doesn't argue calls? But that doesn't matter what sport you're in: tennis, football, baseball, hockey, anything of that nature. You're going to argue a call.
I think for the 70s and 80s, he was controversial because he took a game that was kind of a gentlemanly game and he turned it on his ear, but he had the talent to back that up. And I think his talent is where his legacy lies, not in his on-court antics. So I don't think in the long run he's controversial at all, maybe for that time period, but I don't think modern equivalency he is.
I just think he just stepped the game of tennis up, like to make it more, rather than just a back and forth game. He made it more intense. Like, he gave it an attitude.
He was basically a personality for a sport that didn't have personality. I mean, they had personalities, but not really.
It's a sport that doesn't have personalities. Yeah, tennis is a sport that I really cannot watch. That's a sport I really cannot watch. But some of these players on here, like, okay, this is interesting. Just to go through, like, really, like you said, tennis and that. It's like, how is that a sports controversy on the field or on the court or anywhere?
John Daly's on this list, and I'm telling you, he's only on this list because he's fat and he smokes while he golfs. Has any of that affected his golfing game? Probably not. He was never the greatest golfer that played. He was always an okay, a good golfer, but he wasn't like the greatest.
But it worked. He still got paid to play golf.
Okay, here's a good one because you're an MMA guy. Jason Mayhem Miller.
Which number was he? I'm actually scrolling through the list now.
He's number 53.
Trying to remember, isn't he the one that has like mayhem tattooed across his chest or something?
Yeah, he's been in and out of jail for assault, drug addiction. He was just charged with a felony last month for breaking a man's ribs in a bar fight.
Well, there you go.
He deserves to be on this list.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say he deserves to be on this list far more than Antonio Brown and Manny Ramirez and Allen Iverson and
John Daly and
I'm calling shenanigans on this list at this point.
Well, pretty much the list we're looking is just 50 plus, as they put it, controversial players, and I think they're looking at more both sides of the story on them, both sides of everything, whether it's their personal outside of sports life and their sports life. Because you have, I just had it up here, Pedro Martinez. He's on this list.
Why? Because he pushed Don Zimmer, an old man, to the ground in a bench clearing brawl.
I mean, what has he done to really make himself controversial besides that? I mean, if you pick one thing out of his whole career that was controversial, okay, fine, that may be it. Maybe it. I don't, who knows if that's actually why he's on this list, but you didn't hear anything about him to make him controversial.
All right. Tonya Harding's number 4 on this list.
Okay.
Fairly, I mean, she was a legitimate Olympic skater.
Mm-hmm.
She did pay men to injure Nancy Kerrigan. But outside of that,
what else did she do?
Right. I mean, ESPN reported on her divorce trial, and she was on World's Dumbest as a talking head on True TV. Other than paying the guys to hurt Nancy Kerrigan, it's not really that controversial in the long run.
No. But they put her on this probably because of that. So they need to find something.
Now, I will say this. I agree with Lance Armstrong being number 2. I think he's a douche.
Well, when you take something to cycle a bike, I mean, that's just...
When you lie for years upon years.
And then all of a sudden, here we are.
Right. I think he deserves his number 2 spot. So I'm fine with that. But I think there's some on this list that don't belong on there at all.
Well, no, some don't. A lot do, but some don't. I mean, but the thing is, how nitpicky are they on what they do to become controversial?
I think we need to be honest with ourselves and the listeners. I think this is not so much controversial athletes. I think it's the athlete, whomever on Ranker created this list. It's players they disliked who happen to be kind of controversial.
Or did something that would potentially make them controversial.
Like Terrell Owens is number 15. Did he crap talk a lot? Yeah. Did he have an ego? Yeah. Was he kind of a douche sometimes? Yeah.
He was a hell of a football player, though.
But name me a football player who was a star of that caliber in that time who wasn't some form of those things.
Who didn't try to become the spotlight of everything. Which he did. He tried to become the spotlight of everything, and, he was a hell of a receiver.
Like LT's on this list. LT's probably on this list because of his drug addiction more than his on-field play.
Yeah, I think they're just like nitpicking on things. They just, if they one thing, that's what their controversy is.
Because I mean,
that's what that's how they have to do it. Because how else would they do stuff like that? And I was trying to find something that said the player and what they were controversial about. This way would kind of make it easier on like, okay, this is why they picked them for this category. But Of course they don't. Of course.
Why is Kobe on there? Ty Cobb makes sense.
I mean, I think Kobe on there for what he, like his
feuds with teammates.
Is it fair?
Well, but what athlete doesn't have an affair now? Like, right.
But also, like, that's splitting hairs. Because, as you were just ready to say, what athlete doesn't? So, I think some of these are just picking. They're just being too picky on what they're calling this.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, great topic because it gave us something to talk about. But I think this list needs to be called into question.
Like I said, I tried to find a list of where.
No, this was good because it gave us something to talk about.
Yeah, but still, I tried to find a list that would actually say this is the person, this is why they're on this list. Not just here's the person, here's the list. Okay.
Why is Randy Savage on this list?
He's on the list?
He's number 69. Why is he on this list? I know a ton about the Macho Man. I'm one of his biggest fans. Why is he on this list?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean,
his rap album from 2003. Is that it? Like,
was it that bad? Was it that bad?
I've never listened to it. It's one of the few things from him I didn't buy because I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't understand why Macho Man would be on this list.
Okay, here's a good one. Todd Bertuzzi at number 77 should be in the top 10.
Yeah. For what he did, I forget the year it was, but what he did to Steve Moore, yeah, he's definitely a player of that. Yeah.
I would say going up to the top 10.
You know who I haven't seen yet, and I'm kind of shocked I haven't seen him on here, is Sean Avery. What?
You can't say Sean Avery and not expect to know exactly what quote of his comes into my head.
I know what quote. I know what quote comes into your head.
Going back to Bertuzzi, I would put him at number 7 after Michael Vick, because I don't think Barry Bonds, Dennis Rodman, and the other top 10 are as worse as him.
I can see that.
Sean Avery.
Well,
just look up Sean Avery on YouTube.
Sean Avery interviews.
You'll
just
find
Sean
it.
Avery interviews. You'll find exactly what's in our head. We cannot say it on the show.
I mean, we could.
We could, but we have to change it from friendly to something else.
Look up Sean Avery, Elijah Cuthbert. Okay, and you'll find it. I can't keep. We got to end this. I can't keep it together now.
All right, so yeah, the list of controversy. If you have any players that you think are controversial, just throw them on social media. We can discuss them, chat between us, whatever. So just put them up there. On that note, that's the end of the third period before Jason loses all focus.
Oh boy. I mean, he was a jerk, but his interviews were a thing of beauty for how bad they were and how awful of a human being he was.
I mean, his on-ice play, yes, deserved to be controversial because they made rules up because of him.
Oh my God. Okay.
But his interviews, yeah, they were interesting in better sense.
So last episode, before we wrap this up, we did hit a listener milestone and we did run a contest. And the winner of that contest was Kevin Dignam. And he will be getting a free shirt from us, from our Teespring store. So congratulations, Kevin. Hope you enjoy the shirt. Good guy I talk to pretty regularly, actually. He's an admin of a group I'm an admin of on Facebook. All around good dude. And a national championship bowler.
Oh, wow.
He bowled at the Nationals in Las Vegas a few months ago.
There you go.
So real quick, 2 plugs. I will be guest hosting on Baseball Together this coming week. I believe that will drop Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. It's too late to double check with Brad. But I'll be on there, and then you will also be able to find me Wednesday with Brad from Baseball Together as well on the Punk Popcast. Every Wednesday, we go over different artists, albums, and songs from the world of pop punk music. You can find both of those wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for joining us for episode 33 of the None Other Sports Podcast. You can find us online at facebook.com/None Other Sports Podcast, Twitter at None Other Sport 1, Instagram at NASPod20, TikTok at NASPod20, and we're on YouTube, and our link tree is always going to be in the description of the episodes. You can just click on that. It'll take you to all of our links. You can choose whichever one you want to go to interact with us. Please feel free, comment, message us, reach out. That's why we have social media. It's our way to connect with you, the fans, to get an idea of what you like that we're doing, what you don't like what we're doing, and to help us improve the show. The None Other Sports Podcast is available for streaming or download at Anchor.fm, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please do not forget to subscribe, rate, and review. With that, I'm Jason.
I'm David.
And we'll talk with you next time.
Have a good one.